Winnipeg, right? Winnipeg.
Yeah, we just had a snowstorm last night, so city is kind of bogged down a little bit.
I like snow. I like snow the first 2 days, and that's it. After that, it's no fun. Can't go anywhere.
Well, we've had snow, I guess, since probably November, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the pains of living in Canada and not South Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually nice, but we don't mind the weather. The weather's kind of nice. We really enjoy the seasons. Lots of people who go down south and stuff live there. That's from Canada. That's one of the things they miss the most is the changing
The
seasons.
changing. Yeah.
All right, here we go in three, two, one. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast, a podcast to promote and improve your practice as an athletic trainer. Today, Dr. Glen Bergeron is going to talk to us about. I should have asked you, but how do you say it? Do you say WFAT or WFAT?
Uh, it's typically said World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. The WFAT is a common thing. We don't particularly like that, but that's what lots of people use.
All right, so today, Dr. Glen Bergeron will talk to us about the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. And then if you have to abbreviate it, it's WFATT. I am your host, Jeremy Jackson. I'm joined by Dr. Aaron Hassler, who has experience with athletic training abroad as well as right here in Houston. And so it's a joy to have her here with me as well. This is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/WFATT. So I'll have links to anything that we mention, any of the resources, ways to get a hold of Dr. Bergeron, Dr. Hassler, or myself, or to get a hold of WFAT or WFATT. So, Dr. Bergeron, without much further ado, let's just get an overview. Give me the cliff notes. What is the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy?
Well, the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy, which is a mouthful, I know, has been in existence since 2000. So we have a 20-year history now, and it initially started as a brainchild of the National Athletic Trainers Association, the NATA, and the CATA, the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association, where they felt that there was a need to globalize what we do. For much of it, the profession of athletic training and therapy is a North American phenomena. You know that the NATA has a long history of 65 years and we in Canada have a 55-year history. And so, we're pretty passionate about what we do. We know the value of what we do. We know the effect that we can have on the physically active individual. And so we wanted to make sure that same type of access and to that kind of service was a global phenomenon. And so the World Federation was launched in 2000, and since that time, I think we've had 4 different presidents now. I am actually the first president outside of the U.S. Is not an NATA affiliate, so we're essentially sort of establishing ourselves maybe a little bit more globally, where some of our other international partners are taking a much more engaged role in the World Federation. But the essence of the World Federation is really to be the global face of athletic training and therapy worldwide, and we would do that on 2 fronts. One is that we want to represent the international scope of athletic training and therapy to other international organizations. So there are a number of international organizations that are responsible for sport and or for healthcare for our athletes. That would be including things like the International Olympic Committee, the FIMS, Fédération Internationale de Médecine Sportive, the European Sports Medicine, the FIFA would be other groups that are international. International ice hockey would be international. So all these organizations are international, and all of them, to some extent, use our services or have services need for our services. And so the impetus of what we want to do with the World Federation is to be able to present a global standard of what athletic training and therapy is and who those people are, and in such a way that these international organizations would first of all recognize who we are, but at the same time come to trust and embrace a standard that we have set at a global level, so that wherever you come from, whether if you're an athletic trainer, therapist, anywhere in the world, then outside bodies could recognize that you've met you are a part of a global family that has a standard, and you've met that standard of which you can they can trust you for.
Okay. You have a question for me?
Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Bergeron. One of my questions would be for you, with the plan to make WFATT, World Federation, a global face. Is there some sort of credentialing in development for athletic trainers or athletic therapists? I know sometimes in other countries they're called physiotherapists. I'm not sure if that's one of the clinical practices that you all are wanting to include, but is there some sort of universal certification or credentialing that would be available for
Right.
providers to attain in order to meet that standard or to be recognized by the organization?
That's a very good question, Aaron. So the essence of the way that we see ourselves moving is that we want to empower each country to have control of their own profession, and for a couple of reasons. One is that every country will have individual nuances that are culturally specific to their country that might identify and describe their profession, and so the scope of practice could be somewhat different, from country to country. The other is that we want to be able to, if we're going to, for a lack of a better word, lobby and promote the profession of athletic training and therapy, it really needs to happen within that country. So we need to engage and empower and organize people within their own country who will then go about the process of promoting the profession of athletic training and therapy. So what we're trying to do is establish associations in each different country, and those associations are autonomous. They're their own. They decide what their scope of practice is. They decide what their certification process is. Their academic preparation, etc. They decide all of that, and then so that they can then grow within their own country. And then from there, what we do is when they're doing that, as they go through that process, that we do want to make sure that we're all going down the same path, so that we do, to some degree, have some commonality. And the large proportion of what we do should be common. And then, so if I had to put a number on it, I'd say, 80% of what we do as athletic training and therapy worldwide is the same, and maybe 10 to 20% might be somewhat different. So if I was going to Japan, for example, or to China, then acupuncture may be something that they would do. Other countries, for example, I know that one of our members in Ireland, they have a strong focus on manual therapy, whereas there'd be less of a focus on manual therapy in other parts in other countries. So we would recognize that as being a bit of a uniqueness to that particular country. But in essence, we have this common scope of practice. Now, how do we adjudicate that, monitor that, recognize that? Currently, we have what's referred to as the Mutual Recognition Agreement. That Mutual Recognition Agreement is not part of the World Federation. It's independent of the World Federation. It's again, it's got a bit of a history. It initially started in 2005 when the NATA and the CATA signed a bilateral agreement. And what we did, the essence of the agreement was that if you were NATA certified but wanted to come to Canada to work in Canada, you couldn't do that without then going through our whole academic program and challenging our certification exam. And now the agreement then said, well, let's look at each other's academic programs. let's look at each other's certification programs and accreditation programs. And if we both have confidence in what we're doing, that there's a similarity to that, then we would indeed then have a confidence in that certified person coming out of that country. We would still put a layer of protection, if you like, because the whole point is protection of the public to ensure that we have qualified people. So the MRA indicated that if you were BOC certified, you could come to Canada and challenge the CATA exam, and if you passed it, then you could have the right to practice in Canada. And then reciprocally, the same thing would happen in the U.S. So
Isn't
that
that
was in
changing?
2005.
Isn't that changing in 2020?
Well,
That rule?
in 2015, we entered into a tripartite agreement with Ireland. So we have three countries. That 2015 agreement ends in 2020,
Okay.
and they're currently going through negotiations now. The agreement said that within 18 months out of before the termination of one agreement, we have to start negotiating. So the MRA, the partners in the MRA are currently in negotiation right now. To see what the 2020 to 2025 agreement will look like.
So
But
I ran into, I'm sorry, I ran into a colleague when I was traveling this fall in Doha from Jamaica, and she was interested in, being able to come into this country and do some work.
right,
Still be able to maintain her status in her country and work with her athletes. But she was Canadian. So she worked in Jamaica, but she's actually Canadian,
okay.
and her credentials were from Canada. Would you recommend that someone with that sort of desire that they expedite their credentialing process prior to waiting for the 2020 decision to come down?
Well, unfortunately, the MRA is in a bit of a conflict, not a conflict, but it's in a bit of a flux. There was an issue related to the MRA that the CATA had some issues with, and they opted to withdraw from the current MRA. So currently, we did in 2015, we had a tripartite agreement between the NATA, Ireland, and Canada has withdrawn from this current MRA.
Okay.
And so
Was that
there was a
early
window of
January?
opportunity where they could have done that, and at the moment they can't. Canadian can't avail themselves of the MRA under the current agreement. That may change at the end of this particular one in 2020, when there's negotiations that are happening. That may change.
Okay.
All right, so Dr. Bergeron, tell me a little bit about your therapist story. So how did you become a therapist, and then how did you become involved in WFATT?
Well, I've got a long history because I got lots of gray hair. But I started when I did a physical education degree, actually, at the University of Manitoba. And at that time, we had, so that was in 1970, long time ago. And at that time, there was no accredited programs for athletic therapy. The association was in place. It had been in place for, I guess, 5 years, because it was initially started in 1965. And so like the NATA, when they first started growing, it was an internship-based program that was housed within the Faculty of Physical Education at the University of Manitoba. So I was initially went into the faculty to become a physical education teacher, but then was exposed to athletic training and therapy and decided that that's the bend that I wanted to take. So I was doing some of the internship program through my mentor at the university. His name was Gord Mackey. And when I finished my undergraduate degree, I decided to go to the University of Alberta and do a master's degree in exercise. The title was, the degree was exercise science, but the stream was athletic training and therapy. And so I went and did 2 years with my master's degree there. And while I was there, that's when the certification exams first came in. They came in 1975. And so I was one of the first people to write the very first certification exam. and certified in 1975. And then finished my master's degree. And then after that, I came back to Winnipeg, to Manitoba, and I started working at the University of Winnipeg as the head athletic therapist there. I worked there for 10 years as the head athletic therapist, and then I was asked to come to the University of Manitoba, which is our larger institution in our city, and I worked there for 9 years as their director of athletic therapy. And then, and interestingly, the University of Winnipeg invited me to come back because they wanted to start an academic program in athletic training and therapy. So I came back as an academic. I had done, in the meantime, I had done my PhD. And so they invited me to come back to the University of Winnipeg to start an academic program in athletic training, athletic therapy. And then we were accredited in 1999 as one of the first academic institutions in Canada to be accredited. And the rest is history. I've been working at this since that time. So the last 24 years, I've been at the University of Winnipeg. In terms of my professional involvement with my organization, when I was at the University of Winnipeg the first time, the first time I came to university, they had already committed to hosting the national conference for the CATA. And so that became one of my first tasks as the chair of the national organization. And at that time, we started a provincial one to be able to get volunteers and get engaged. And so our provincial association, the Manitoba Athletic Therapists Association, was formed out of that process. And then since that time, I have been on the CATA committee in one capacity or another every year. I've been on some committee. I've served as the president of the association for 5 years. I was the vice president for a number of years. I was on the executive for probably 10 or 12 years, and I was the first ombudsperson, the ethics chairperson. I was on the exam review committees. So I've been on, and I'm currently on the International Relations Committee with the CATA. And that role on the International Relations Committee is what, I should take a step back. I was the president in 2005 of the CATA, and that's when we signed the MRA, and that's when the World Federation first adopted its first set of bylaws, was in 2005. So I was president of the CATA at that time, and as that I was representing the CATA with World Federation. And then sometime after that, I was on the International Relations Committee, and our International Relations Committee chair sits as the vice president of the World Federation. So Dexter Nelson was the chair of that committee for quite a number of years, and I was a committee member. And as such, the World Federation allows you to bring your representative, your official representative, and one other observer to the meetings. And so I had the opportunity to sit in meetings as an observer and see what the World Federation was doing. Then I became the chair of the International Relations Committee. So then now took on the role of the vice president of the World Federation. And I think I was in that position for a couple of years, 2-3 years. And then when Larry Leveren's his term of office came to an end and he stepped down, then I was asked to take on the role of the president's position. So that's been since 2017. So I'm 2.5 years into a 4-year term as the president. Long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you're accomplished, so if we don't brag on ourselves, who will? I did have a question, somewhat related to the MRA, and it was, not to belabor that. I really just wanted to make sure that I understand where WFATT is the direction that you're going. I know that you said that there's about 80% of the standards that are
Right.
similar or common across the board. Would the committee, I guess, how would I put it? If each country is autonomous, if each country has their own standard, is there some sort of plan to put in an application to get that credential applied? Now, and I just say a credential, but I'm really just thinking of like a stamp, a gold standard, somewhat like the ACSM or something like that. That if you've gone through these steps, if you've been active for this long, if you've hit these standards or been active on a committee level or made some sort of impact, if your country or the organizing board for that country has done these things, is there an application process for them to then be able to, if nothing else, be able to use that logo on any sort of documentation or any sort of branding that they put out?
Right. Yeah, good questions. The first thing is, in terms of membership within the World Federation, we have a new set of bylaws that are probably been in 2 years now, have been in place, and the membership has been restructured to the point where the association, if the association is applying to be a member of the World Federation and they want to be a charter member, then they have to demonstrate that they have the intent, the interest, and the capacity essentially to promote the profession of athletic training and therapy in their country. So do they have an association that represents their members? Do they have are they moving towards an academic program, et cetera, et cetera? So they have to clearly identify the fact that they are using the terms either athletic training and therapy, or right now we have a number of different terms, which is a little bit problematic.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, that would be good. But so they need to be demonstrating that they have an intent to promote this profession in their country, and so then they can join the World Federation as a member. They can be as a charter member. We also have academic institutions who have programs in athletic training or therapy. They can join as an academic member, as an associate member. And we also have, within our associate category, we also have organizations who see themselves playing a supportive role in promoting athletic training and therapy. And the two that we have at the moment are CATI and BOC.
Okay.
So those are U.S. based. The CATI is the accrediting body in the U.S. and BOC is a certifying body. So they are associate members of our organization. And just this year, we added in another category called the Allied Health Professions Act membership, and those are going to be associations that are not athletic training and therapy, but they see a strong linkage and an interest to collaborate with what we do professionally, and we would see the same thing. So we actually have
would that be like a radiologist association, or
it could be,
psychologist, maybe?
Yeah, it could be if they see themselves saying, we see a value of us linking up with you. So we currently have two. The first one is the Biokinetics Association of South Africa. They were interesting in that the Biokinetics Association of South Africa was actually a member of the World Federation when it was initially founded, and so they were a voting member of our organization. When we reconstituted the association and the membership, and we put in this criteria that said that you had to be actively promoting the profession of athletic training and therapy in your country, they said, well, actually, we don't do that. What we do is we promote the profession of biokinetics in our country, and we have as a mission to promote it globally. So we're actually not working against you, but we're working in parallel with you with a different profession. So they withdrew their membership from the World Federation. But they said, but we would like to maintain a tie. So they're really the ones who stimulated our
the Allied Health arm.
Yeah, the Allied Health thing. So we've created that, and they are now a member. And then since that time, there's another organization, which is the Canadian Sports Massage Therapy Association, and they're the only, to the best of my knowledge, the only sport massage therapy association in the world. And they saw what World Federation is doing, and they saw the value of linkages with us, so that they could educate our professions about what they do, and we could educate them what we do, and we could cross-pollinate some education. So they're a member too. So it's a brand new category,
Okay.
but it's a pretty exciting one, I think, because we're all about collaboration. Our mission statement is that we want to be recognized as part of a healthcare team internationally, and so we're all about, first of all, getting defining what our association, our membership does, our profession does, and promoting it in all different countries, getting it to grow there. But then at the same time, getting this collaboration with other healthcare professions internationally.
So, is there some sort of fee or membership dues that are paid? Is it
Yeah,
and it is an annually per country or
yeah,
per
yeah.
organization?
So,
Okay.
so we have a number of fee schedule that's varied. Um, and just to get back before I forget the
Okay.
thing,
Sorry.
one of the things that we ask all of our members to do, because we're really on a mission to brand this association, is that we do have our logo, and they are allowed to, and we strongly encourage them to put on their website that just says "proud member of the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy." So they have, as a member of the World Federation, they have the authority to do that and use it wherever they feel that's of value. In terms of the membership fees, so for our charter members, these are the members that have a vote. These are our voting members. Uh, we have a fee schedule that's based on their number of members within their organization,
Okay.
and the fee schedule works. It's about between $1 and $1.50 per member of your association. So when we send out our invoices, they tell us the number of members that they have, and they pay the fee accordingly to that. And so that's for our charter members. For our academic institution members, it's $150 US per. These are all annual fees. And for our allied, our supportive ones, they're $500, and our allied health professions groups are 250, and this is all U.S. currency.
So membership is only based on organization, right?
That's
It's
correct.
not an individual membership.
No,
Okay.
no, we do say that we are an organization of organizations.
I've heard that.
Uh,
I've been in the meetings before. um, so a question that I had, you talked about allowing them to use the logo. Jeremy and I both talk about branding and how important it is to brand. Um, if there is a violation of the membership bylaws or membership code, what's your recourse? Is there a way
well,
to ban them? Is there a way to enforce that? Do
yeah,
you now, send a cease and desist for them to no longer be able to use the logo? Do you send that out to the membership?
yeah. Our bylaws have termination policies on them if the people are not uh, uh, complying with the requirements and the regular requirements of the spirit of the World Federation. We do have procedures in place. Thankfully, we haven't been able to have to use them at this point in time. We also have conflict of interest guidelines that all of our like every charter member appoints a member to our board, and so that person has to agree to a conflict of interest in terms of how we operate within the operations and the administration of our organization, as do every one of our committee members. So we have a number of committees that we have individuals sitting on those committees. Maybe I'll just give you a rundown of those committees. We have our marketing and promotion committee that really is essentially is the one that's been the drive behind even these podcasts. So they drive all of our social media. And then we have an education and research committee, and that committee looks at different things in terms of position statements that we may take or that we might want to support if they're coming from external. They're with our World Congress. They are in charge of our abstract and poster sessions within the World Congress. They are going to be looking at a variety of different education and research type initiatives that we may want to do, and collaborative research and things like that. And then we have an academic institutions committee, and that committee is charged with creating a network of academic institutions across the globe, so that we can have collaborations in best practices, academic best practices, potentially collaborative researches, student and faculty exchange programs, and just having this common communication of academics and academic institutions who are moving the profession of athletic training globally. So those are currently our three. We probably will be putting more in as we move along.
So, as a member, would you be able to petition the World Federation for support for research, financial support, or are we just looking at support in name?
Yeah. Well, we're to say that we've been around from 2000. We are just currently embarking on a new growth process. So the World Federation incorporated as a separate entity 2 years ago.
Okay.
So we're now incorporated. We were and all the credit to the NATA. The NATA really from 2000 on to 2018 supported the World Federation financially. They were pretty much the only largely the largest source of funding for what we were doing. They were also, as I said, the previous three presidents of the World Federation came from the NATA. So the NATA was really instrumental in starting it up and fostering its growth and development to the point where they eventually said, it's time for you to grow up and leave the nest. And so that's why we were charged with incorporating independently, having our own, and becoming financially independent. So in the last 2 years, what we've done is we've had our new bylaws. We've incorporated independently from the NATA, and we have these membership fees that we have are brand new. So we're only in our second year of membership fees. So we're starting to develop a financial capacity to be able to do a number of things. And so that's just starting to show itself now in the last 6 months, really, to be able to do that. What are the things that we now have some financial ability to do? So to say that we're actually funding research, we're not. We don't have any money that we're giving away yet, but we will.
It would be something that you would look to do.
Absolutely.
As well as I have a friend or two who are they're athletic trainers, and they are employed overseas. And would that be something that, let's say someone fresh out of school, newly certified or credentialed, but with the desire to travel abroad and to work in another country, would that be something that you would consider? Ways to support them or to help them set up shop, so to speak, in other countries.
Yeah.
And in the hopes to expand the reach or the global face.
Absolutely. So that happens already. We're doing that. We get contacted pretty regularly now from people that are abroad and just asking for information. I can tell you too, though, that there at least three countries right now have international relations committees. So the NATA has an international committee, and the CATA, the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association, has an international relations committee, and ARDI has the Irish people have an international committee, and there's where we have to start to work on. We have to work a little more closely together to say, what's the distinction between these international committees? So the NATA and the CATA have indicated to us that their international interests are their NATA or their members who are working abroad. They want to be able to help and support them. So and so we would say, absolutely, that would be one of the responsibilities you would have as a member organization, is to support your membership. So we would want them to do that. We want to make sure that the international committees from these different countries know what's going on. So, for example, the NATA and the CATA have a strong working relationship between our respective international committees. So we know what each other are doing. They sit in on our committees, we sit in on their committees, so we know what we're doing, and there's some things that we share resources with. So that's a member-based one, and the World Federation would support those, but they would also there are other avenues as well, so that as our academic institution network grows internationally, so we could then provide a person coming and saying, I want to know what's happening in Ireland, and we do this all the time now. I want to be able to go to school there. Well, here's the academic institutions that are members of our organization. Here's the contact information you can contact. Oftentimes what we do is just copy the person's name, and we make the linkage right away. The same thing if they're coming, they want to go to the country and they want to know what the organization is like, then we make that connection with them as well. Okay. So we are a network. We're part of this network.
And women. You have a question, Jeremy? I know I've been talking.
Yes, sir. So we've talked about the World Federation as a organization of organizations, right? So right now I'm wearing my GHATS, which is the Greater Houston Athletic Trainer polo, and I got involved with our local organization by saying, hey, I know how to set up a website, or I know how to run a website, right? And so if, like from your description, I would have to be involved in the NATA International Committee to be involved in the World Federation. How could somebody like me say, hey, I want to help?
Right. So we get a number of requests that way. And what we're saying is that we invite individuals who have skill sets that we need to work with our committees. So all the members of our committees that we have are not, individually, they're not a member of the World Federation. They're a member of that particular committee, but they're a member of a member organization of the World Federation. I hope that wasn't too confusing. But so for example, if you said, I've got lots of social media skill sets, and I'd like to be able to help the World Federation expand their growth, we would put you in touch with our marketing committee, and they would probably swallow you up, because we were always looking for people to do work for us and help us do that. And same thing with the research and our research and education committee. The academic institution committee is same thing. It's if you're a registered academic institution accredited in your country, then you could ask to sit on one of our committee.
And we're talking about higher education, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also have, like our World Congress runs every 2 years. So if an organization, one of our organizations, wanted to host the World Congress, either an academic institution or one of our organizations, one of our member organizations, then there's a groundswell of members that now come into play to put that Congress on over the course of it's 2 years worth of planning and implementation.
All right, so talk to me a little bit more about the World Congress, because that's something that obviously would be like a highlight, like if I got to go and do the podcast in Tokyo or Morocco or any of the different places that you've had the World Congress. So just talk to me what that looks like, how somebody does get involved, and what's the goal of the World Congress.
Right. Okay, so one of the goals of the strategic goals of the World Federation is to disseminate information, and the other is to promote collaboration. So the World Congress is one of those tools. In fact, one of our major tools. We offer a World Congress every 2 years. in 2017 was in Madrid, Spain. In 2019 was in Tokyo. I wish I could tell you where 2021 is going to be. We've encountered a bit of a glitch in that we have been negotiating with one particular organization for quite some time now, and just recently they have decided to decline the opportunity to host. So we're scrambling a little bit in terms of trying to find alternates. But I'm happy to say that we have 3 organizations that are currently in the process of considering taking on that responsibility. So hopefully in the next month or 2, we will be able to announce where the World Congress will be. And I wish I could have done that on this podcast, but we can't. But the World Congress has become, I think, a really important vehicle for the World Federation and for the profession of athletic training and therapy. One of the things that evolved, and I mentioned 2017 in Madrid. In the previous ones, the host society, it was incumbent on them to pretty much accept the full responsibility of putting on the conference, and the World Federation essentially came in and allowed them to use their name, and we brought our members in. But the host society was essentially tasked with doing the whole thing and accepting all the responsibility, including financial. And so in 2017, we changed that to the point where we had asked our member organizations to sponsor speakers. So the member organization would pay the freight in terms of the travel costs and accommodation costs of that speaker. And the host society didn't have to include that in their budget. Well, they would get that as a contribution, but they didn't have to find the money somewhere else. And that did a couple of things. One is it engaged our members, and it gave our member associations an ownership of the World Congress because they were paying into it. So it engaged them and they were part and parcel of the program development. The other is that for a host society, it made it more attractive for host societies to want to take on this risk, because there is a financial risk of these things. And so the risk was mitigated by the fact that our member organizations were contributing to the costs of it. And we also, at the same time, we have a major sponsor. Our official sponsor is Mueller, and Mueller has graciously provided us with funds that we can now tell a host society that as long as there's reasonable budgetary processes going on, then if there was a shortfall, we would be able to help with that shortfall. So that decreased the financial risks of hosting. So it makes it easier for hosts to want to take this on. And so we're pleased with that. And we've had, most of them have been quite successful, but our Madrid one and the last 2 have been particularly successful. The one in Madrid was, I think, 350, close to 400 people there. The one in Tokyo was 500 people. So it's building a momentum, and it's just generating an energy that we want to see happen. And the one of the criteria that we use to select where we're going to go is what is the impact that coming to the World Federation coming to your country, what effect can that have on the development of the profession in your own country? So Madrid, for example, they're working on academic programs, and they're working on an association. So when we were there, they announced that they had a Spanish Athletic Training Association. So they announced the creation of an association. So we were able to be the impetus behind that. When we went to Tokyo, one of the reasons we were going to Tokyo was because of the fact that the Olympics were happening in Tokyo this year. So we went there last year to promote the profession, to give it some profile in their own country. And so now where we go next, we will look and say, what is it that we bring that helps your country to move your profession along? So
brought up Tokyo,
Hmm.
and it's fast approaching. It's right around the corner. Um, One of the questions that I had for you before we got started was, and I didn't want to go there because I know it's gonna, it's a very detailed answer, um, is about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And what the World Federation. You coughed. It's okay. I know it's not.
Sorry.
I know it's not Corona. It's okay. But um, what the Federation's position statement is regarding the coronavirus. I know every day I'm getting a new email from some organization that I'm a part of or associated with about their stance on um, traveling abroad and prevention of
Right.
contraction of the disease. But I wanted to find out from you if you
Yeah.
already formulated a plan.
We actually haven't. We haven't actually broadcasted a position statement, um, but I know that our member organizations are doing that individually. I just received one from the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. Now, the Canadian Athletic Therapists, the one that we got from the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association was one that was not generated by the CATA, because the CATA, we don't have like we don't have a medical advisory committee, but we do have the Canadian Association of Sports Medicine and Science, and so that group that is charged with, because they're the medical doctors, so they're the ones who are charged with um, giving opinion, giving direction related to illness, systemic type illnesses. And so we just got a notice that it's a combined one from the International Olympic Committee and from the Canadian Association of Sports Medicine. And the CATA is the deliverer of the message. So our member organizations are doing that. Um, as a World Federation, our communication tree is back to our organizations.
Okay.
And so I know our organizations are already doing that. So there isn't like, for example, we don't have like it's a profession of athletic training and therapy. So the same thing is that we don't have medical doctors who are providing us with advisory or advice. And really, the athletic training and therapy role is not to give specific advice on illness. That's up to the medical profession to do that. But at the same time, it's incumbent on all of our member organizations to make sure that our members know about that.
Okay.
All right, I got two questions. One is on the website. It talks about studying abroad. So how and why do you encourage people to study athletic training or therapy abroad? And then what is the biggest project or the most exciting project that you feel like the World Federation is working on currently?
Okay, so our academic institutions committee have been mandated with the whole study abroad process. So they're currently looking at a couple of different models. One model would be to engage one, because there are a number of organizations who do these things, who do study abroad things, that they do it as a business. I should probably step back, is when we stopped to consider whether we wanted to provide study abroad services and programming, the logistics of those things are overwhelming, be they liability issues, insurance issues, travel issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we as an organization don't have the resources and the manpower and the expertise to actually manage a study abroad program. So the second option was to looking at other companies who actually do this. This is what they do, and they on a daily basis they manage the liabilities and logistics and travel and these kinds of things. And so two options are being explored right now. One would be to put out a request for proposals of all the groups that do this, and for us to select one, and they would be the official provider of study abroad programs for the World Federation. That could be one option, and there are pros and cons to that. The other would be to essentially uh, uh, develop relationships with all the groups that are in this business, and advise them that there is a market out there for athletic training and therapy, and if they wanted to offer study abroad programs, then we would advertise that for them. And so again, there are pros and cons of those two. So the committee is currently looking at those two options. Um, we do have a study abroad link on our website that essentially gives people individually, if you're looking at things, here's the things you should be considering when you are wanting to go to study abroad. And we also have, again, our listing of all of our institutions that are international, largely in the U.S., Canada, and Ireland right now, that you can contact them. I should say also that at the last meeting of the academic institutions, they did decide that they were going to work on developing an inventory of all of our current academic institution members, what their exchange programs are, what they're like. So getting a description of what the exchange program is, what the timelines are, what the requirements are. So they're going to do an inventory of that, and that will be made available on our website, so any individual could come in and say, oh, I want to go to the University of Texas, for example, and so they can go on and say, well, here's the exchange program, here's what they do, here's the criteria, here's how you apply, and here's who to contact. So that's just facilitating collaborative stuff, not so much us doing it. But we are very much supportive of study abroad programs.
And then the biggest project you feel like y'all are working on right now?
Oh yeah. Okay. So again, one of the things that we're looking at branding the World Federation, and if you can give me the ideas because you've got some expertise in branding, all the better. But one of the things that our marketing and promotion committee are working on right now is athletic training, an ATT day, athletic training and therapy day. The intent on it, I think the last time I talked with the committee, they're looking at it sometime in June or July, in line with the Tokyo Olympics. So you may be hearing something more about this in the very near future. The intent of this one day is a social media blitz. So we are going to ask every one of our member organizations to get to every one of their member individuals, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 55,000 people, and ask them that on that day, they will use any one of our social media platforms to reflect on anything or do anything about athletic training and therapy. So what is it that they're doing today is athletic training and therapy? What do they think about athletic therapy? Where are they studying? Anything that has to do with athletic training and therapy. We want to get as many hits on our social media on that one day globally. So that's going to be happening in the next, hopefully will be happening sometime in the next few months.
Okay. Dr. Bergeron, I know I keep
Mm-hmm.
asking you questions, but we did talk
Fine.
about this one earlier, and I think it's a big one, so I wanted to wait till we had a minute to think about it and come back and answer it. Um, so, uh, the World Federation, of course, is athletic training and therapy combined. Like you just said, the ATT day. Um, how do you view the terminology or nomenclature differences globally? I know for many of us as athletic trainers, we have to constantly educate in every conversation with a new person, with anyone that it could be anyone on the street, it could be even someone um, in what may seem like an athletic related profession. We have to always differentiate between what we do with personal training and coaching and weight loss and um, versus the more healthcare based profession. How do you
Correct.
see the nomenclature differences as you move globally with the face
Yeah,
of the World Federation? Like, how do you? reconcile that?
That's an excellent question. I'll take you back to my experience with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. So when I first joined the association, we were the Canadian Athletic Trainers Association. We actually, initially, if we can go even further back, we were actually a district. Canada was a district of the NATA. And when the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association decided to become its own entity in 1965, they adopted the same terminology, Canadian Athletic Trainers Association. 10 years later, the association made a name change, and they changed it to Canadian Athletic Therapists Association for precisely the reasons why you're saying that. So 40 years ago, we had those same things. 45 years ago, 50 years ago, we had those same things, the same issues. We, in fact, one of the other ones was that we had to distinguish ourselves from was horse trainers. So there was training. So we opted for the word therapist, largely because it really provided that implication of that we're within the medical field. And so, for me personally, I think that was one of the best things that our association ever did. We still, even at that, we still struggle with that word athletic sometimes. So now we've gone through this whole process of talking about the athlete in you as a physically active individual. You are an athlete, even though if you're recreational, et cetera, to try and expand the service base that we provide. Mm-hmm. And so we did that a long time ago. And other organizations have evolved, and I think essentially the World Federation, when it became an entity, it inherited these organizations with their own individual names, and so it is a bit of, when we talk about branding, I'm sure Jeremy would come right out and say it, that you've got to be able to brand one name, and you got to be able to brand one set of letters. That if you're an MD, we know exactly what an MD says. If you're a PT, we know exactly what that means. Do we know what an ATD means? And we have sports rehabilitators, we have sports trainers, we have sports therapists, we have there's all kinds of permutations of the same group. Mm-hmm. And so it's not an easy thing to change. I think it's something that if we had to start from scratch, we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't have this, right? We would have the one name. It's not an easy one to change. I know that the NATA, I think at least once, maybe twice now, have had a referendum to change their name from athletic training to athletic therapy, and it has not won out by very, very narrow margins. But I can tell you that when we're talking to new groups, we are making them aware of that. We're making them aware of, if you have the opportunity to name yourself, then we're saying, and in fact, we're actually encouraging athletic therapy. They may choose.
That is a position statement of the.
It's not a position
soft
statement.
One.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you don't have to, but this may work for you.
Exactly. But I can tell you just as a side note, that the ARTI, and that's Athlete Rehabilitation and Therapy Ireland. That's their name of their organization, but they have now just changed their title, their professional title, to athletic therapist.
Okay. You said ARTI, and I'm asking that for two reasons. I'm one of the first few, I think 50 in the world with a Doctor of Athletic Training degree, and prior to enrollment in the program, that was one of the things that I really spent a little time thinking about. If the doctorate is supposed to be the highest level in a particular field, and we're branding as an athletic trainer or as an athletic training doctorate, how do we then still how do we differentiate?
Right.
How do we go in and still brand without having to spend so much time explaining?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I
can
think
tell
it's
you
kind of
that,
my personal. It's become my personal mission. So that was kind of why I asked. Like, if you have any ideas,
yeah.
help me
Well,
because
I
I
can
think
tell
it
you
helps
that
the whole profession.
I'm getting this third party from Dexter Nelson,
Hmm.
who was at that time was our representative on the World Federation when they first looked at creating it and doing the naming. That there was some discussion back and forth about the name was initially going to be the World Federation of Athletic Training, and there was a considerable amount of discussion back and forth. And the concession was that okay, well, we will call it Athletic Training and Therapy, which is why
Troubles
we have this
everyone.
big mouthful right now of our association.
It's like too many letters, but
Exactly.
it's good
Uh,
though.
yeah.
It's good.
So in terms of your personal mission, really that's within your own organization, right?
Oh,
Within the
I'm my own
NATA.
organization. I guess that's what. No, no, but I am a member of NATA and I do support the use of the name. I mean, how can I have a degree now that says it and I'm
Right.
not a supporter of the name? So it took me a minute to think about what stance I was going to take.
Yeah.
But I'm going to own it and try to promote as best as possible. So, um,
Yeah.
I just
It,
asking for some tips on how to do that globally since I am working internationally.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I say, we are encouraging people to use the word athletic therapy. I think most people, uh, I mean, the NATA, I think they see some value in that term as opposed to trainer, but they also see the fact that they've got a brand and that they've had a long history of it, and et cetera. So it becomes difficult, would be difficult for them to make that change. Not impossible, but it'd be difficult. And so that association hasn't come to grips with that, and that's fine. And we have other groups that, for example, we're working in Jordan, and they have been using the word sports therapist, and we've been asking them that if they actually eventually develop the association the way they're planning to do, that they use the word athletic therapy. I just came back from Israel last week. We was at a conference there, and uh, they are in the infancy of developing their organization. They do have a whole cohort of people who have been previously trained in a program that's not an academic, not a degree program. It's a 2-year program, and they're all called sports therapists. But they also now their association is going to have another category called athletic therapist,
Okay.
and they'll just define the difference between a sports therapist and an athletic therapist. They will make that distinction between the two.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Bergeron, we are in near our end of our time with you. I know we told you we'd take up an hour of your time. So, final thoughts on the World Federation. Somebody wants to get a hold of the World Federation, get a hold of you. How do we close it out?
Yeah, well, I would encourage people to go to our website. Peter Dewar is our webmaster, and he's doing an outstanding job with our website. Go there to get some information. I would encourage you to link in with we have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. So connect with us in those ways. They're doing a fabulous job of trying to communicate to people as to what we're doing. We have just finished a strategic plan meeting at the end of January, and we're in the throes of going through the processes of getting our strategic plan, our new mission statement and vision, and our strategic goals accepted by our member organizations. And once we get that published, you'll be able to see where we're going in the next 4 to 5 years. So we're very excited about the World Federation, and I get excited every day when I talk to people about how excited they are about this world entity, this global entity that just gives them all the credibility domestically. So we really want to push that whole notion that um, if we get on the international stage and we get that credibility on the international stage, that gives every one of our member organizations credibility within their own country, and it gives every member of that organization credibility within their own institutions and their workplace and within the public. And so there's a huge trickle down effect of this thing, and it really needs to be supported and driven from the grassroots.
All right, very good. If you want to get a hold of Dr. Bergeron, again.
Yeah. The best way would be to go to our website. We have a contact us link there. It's sort of the funnel of all of our communication, and our webmaster, he'll get that information, and then he shuffles it off to the appropriate people, including myself.
Very good. So it's WFATT.org, and then it's pretty easy to find where it has there, like you said, the Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, all those little buttons are there up on the top, or you can search on any of those, WFATT, and some of them are WFATT official. So if you just search on whatever social media platform you're looking on, that'd be an easy way to do that. So for Dr. Aaron Hassler, how are they going to get a hold of you?
Hi, Jeremy. They will be able to get a hold of me on my website, sportsfactory.com. That's SPORTZ factory.com. It's the same Sports Factory on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you could Google me.
Or you could Google her.
Dr. Aaron Hassler.
All right, and I don't know if you can see it, but right up here.
I'm up
There,
top.
yeah, I think one of the cameras
I'm the first T-shirt.
kind of cuts it off there.
I'm the first T-shirt. Neon.
So if you got a shirt to add to the wall, just send it to me. But if you want to get a hold of me, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com anywhere, or if you need to email me, that's info@sportsmedicinebroadcast. And that's kind of what you were talking about, the branding. If I had known a little bit better in the beginning, I would have said Jeremy@sportsmedicinebroadcast.com. But when I set up the website, I was like, oh, well, I don't want to put my name on there. And so
We can change it, Jeremy.
So
We can change it.
so there you go. So you want to think about those things, when you're creating this, just like Dr. Hester said, make sure everything is the same. Everything was sportsfactory.com or Sports Factory on all the social media stuff. So without much further ado, the partners with the Sports Medicine Broadcast. If you use MedBridge, use the SMB. If you use Mark Pro, use the SMB as your promo code, and those will help save you some money. And check those out. So.
Oh, and I'd like to thank KT Tape for supporting everything that I do, and Gatorade as well, and Hoist. I appreciate it.
So you can check out this episode is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/WFATT, which is short for World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. So sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/WFATT. So for Jeremy, the World Federation, Dr. Glen Bergeron, Dr. Aaron Hassler, and Jeremy and the Sports Medicine Broadcast, that is a wrap. Thanks.
Thanks, Doc. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you guys too. Thanks very much.